right, we're going to go ahead and get started this afternoon's regular work session meeting for March 30th. Could we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Korth,
Here.
Treasurer Moran, absent. Trustee Carter,
Here.
Trustee Damstra,
Here.
Trustee Prose, absent. Trustee Hurwitz, absent.
Oh, we just walked in.
Roll call. Trustee Hurwitz. Trustee Hurwitz.
Here,
Treasurer Moran.
present. Here.
Okay, we have an agenda in front of us that actually has one slight revision. So we have 4 items under new business. Item A will be the discussion on the 3 Mile Road, Natural Beauty Road, public hearing and potential impact on the natural beauty roads in the township. The new addition will be an update by the DDA director on the efforts with the county to install our traffic calming and crosswalks and so forth for pedestrian safety. That will be B. That's the new item. And then the previous item B will discuss the preliminary township hall internal layout becomes C, and the future regular work session topics becomes D. So with that slight change and that addition, would someone move to approve the agenda?
So move. Approve the agenda.
Support.
Okay, so we have the motion by Trustee Carter, supported by Treasurer Moran. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries. Okay, so we go into a public comment section now. It's the first public comment of the day. Would any members of the public like to come up to talk about any topic at their pleasure? Okay, it will be your opportunity with respect to our discussion on 3 Mile to make any public comments. So if you have anything you'd like to say at this point related to that, this would be the time to do it. Okay, so hearing none, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and move into the first item, which is a discussion on 3 Mile Road.
Thank you, Supervisor Korth. So wanted to give an update. So this is the first work session that we're doing as a regular work session. Typically, we've scheduled work sessions for special items, but the idea was when we approved the board calendar for the year, that anytime there was a 5th Monday, we would hold a regular work session. This one was a pretty quick turnaround from the time we got the calendar approved. We just had a board meeting last week, obviously, and so typically we'll get materials to the board prior, but we were kind of having a moving target whether we were going to hold the meeting or not. I think there's some really good discussion to be had on a number of fronts. Specifically 3 Mile Road, Supervisor Korth, myself, and then Trustee Carter were able to have a meeting with the Kent County Road Commission and Jerry Byrne on Friday. And so one of the concerns from myself, Supervisor Korth, and board members that was expressed was, Ada Township has more natural beauty roads than anyone in Kent County. And so what happens when that natural beauty road designation is removed? And then what impact do we see on other natural beauty roads? And so we started doing some digging, started looking at options. And so we came into this meeting on Friday trying to present the Road Commission a path forward. And the idea wasn't that we don't want improved maintenance. We do. We think there is a path, though, to obtain that without removal of the natural beauty road designation. And so at your table is the actual Natural Beauty Road Act that outlines from the state of Michigan what natural beauty roads are. It talks about the petition process to create a natural beauty road as well as remove a natural beauty road designation. And then on the second page, it talks about the guidelines and procedures for native vegetation preservation, rights of public utilities or government agencies or municipalities. And so specifically the section that is highlighted was the one that we brought up to the Road Commission. So essentially what has happened in our process is we've gone to the Road Commission, residents have gone to the Road Commission, and we've said 3 Mile Road is substandard for safety and needs to be addressed. What can we do about it? And the Road Commission's response has been that to do any additional maintenance beyond what is routine, the Natural Beauty Road designation has to be removed. In reading the state statute, and specifically the area that I've highlighted, it talks about prior to approval of any construction project or tree cutting that would significantly impact native vegetation within the right-of-way of a natural beauty road, the board shall notify the clerk of the city, village, or township within which the road lies of the proposed activity. If the city, village, or township desires to hold a public hearing on the proposed activity, the clerk shall notify the board within 7 days. The notice of the board shall include the date, time, and place of the township, city, or village hearing. The hearing shall take place within 14 days. And then it talks about this in number 7 that's also highlighted. And it says, this part does not affect or restrict the maintenance activities of a governmental agency or a municipality having jurisdiction over a natural beauty road. And so essentially, the Road Commission had brought up that they believe the natural beauty road designation needs to be removed to be able to complete minor construction, which would be improvements. We present an alternative argument that under the current Natural Beauty Road Act, they should propose what work is to be done, present it to the township, and then the township would determine whether a public hearing is held and notify the residents. And the reason the Road Commission is much more strict about this from their communication with me is a number of years ago, the Road Commission started work and vegetation removal on Leonard in Ada Township. They did not hold a public hearing, and they did not remove the Natural Beauty Road designation. And then they had a number of residents threaten legal action against the Road Commission. And so they packed up their equipment and they left. And they said, we're not touching this. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, that happened. The Road Commission is obviously doesn't want to have a repeat issue. But what we communicated to the Road Commission is, while other communities like Oakfield or Virgins or Cannon might have one natural beauty road, we have about 14, 15 miles, I believe, off the top of my head. And realistically, we want the same thing the residents want. We want a better 3 Mile road, because we also want a better 2 Mile road and a better Crampton and a better Leonard and a better conservation. And so this is not a one-off. This is a much larger conversation. But I also know I've had conversations with residents on 2 Mile Road and other areas who say, what do I need to pave my road? And so then I go through the conversation, and then they immediately say, well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want something different. And so I think our goal has been, the rural characteristic of Ada Township north of the river is different. And if we can maintain the Natural Beauty Road designations, we feel there's value there. Whether there is or not, again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but we think we have more leverage or leeway to be able to maintain properly and work with the Road Commission. And so in our communication with the Road Commission, we talked about what the potential timeline is as it currently stands. So on April 28th, there's going to be a public hearing. At that public hearing, the Kent County Road Commission Board is going to review and consider whether the Natural Beauty Road designation has to come off. They don't make a decision that night. They have to make a decision within 14 days of that meeting. The goal of the meeting was basically to try to present a plan so that we could have a unified front, because we don't want to go to the public hearing on April 28th and seem like we're at opposition with the residents. We're not. We're not in support of the Natural Beauty Road designation necessarily being removed, but we believe there's other ways to achieve what we want to achieve, which is better maintenance of the road. And so in talking to Jerry Byrne with the Road Commission, realistically, even if the Natural Beauty Road designation is removed this year, to be able to do engineering work, survey, realistically, any minor construction would not take place till 2027 from a scheduling standpoint. That's just the reality of their workflow, their workload, and where we're at. And so realistically, we know nothing's going to happen until at a bare minimum 2027. And so we had proposed in our conversation with them, one, is 3 Mile Road a candidate for a wrap treatment? So a wrap treatment is the recycled asphalt product that we placed on 2 Mile Road. We did it a number of years ago. This year, we're going to be doing Crampton, Leonard, and Conservation are also going to be getting wrap treatments. Essentially, it's recycled asphalt product, millings, and they get ground up into the actual road base and it's supposed to provide a better substructure. It does significantly better in rain events, holds the road better together. Still doesn't address, obviously, some of the drainage issues, the narrowness of the road, the height of the hill, but it could potentially buy us time to, one, improve the road for the residents and the public, but then also allow the township then to work with the road commission on putting together an engineering plan. So realistically, none of the gravel roads in Ada Township have a survey because when they were created, the roads were just created. So the road commission hasn't gone in and shot the topography of every single tree, hill, ditch to try to identify what would need to be done. And so realistically, they would like us to consider the engineering component work order at our next meeting, so that way we could signal to the board that yes, we want to start the engineering process. We have a plan to potentially move forward with a wrap treatment in the interim. And then realistically, that project for 2027, which could include cutting down the hill, widening the road, realistically, this is a little bit of a middle ground because our concern has been they're going to clear cut everything and we're not going to have a voice at the table. And
we're going to pay for it.
And we're going to pay for it. And realistically, with the Natural Beauty Road designation staying on, it allows the road commission to propose the engineering. The township could hold the public hearing to communicate to the residents what potential changes are going to be made. And I don't know what those are yet. So I couldn't tell you. I do know they've got concerns about the height of the hill, the narrowness of the hill at the top. There's concerns about drainage. And so realistically, any path we move forward with is going to involve the engineering component, potential tree removal. But our goal with this meeting was to say, Road Commission, do you see a path forward if we're able to propose a wrap treatment, if our board's able to approve the engineering for the minor construction in our April 14th meeting, or 13th meeting, prior to the public, will that signal enough to the Road Commission that Ada Township is committed to getting this done without the Natural Beauty Road designation being removed? And so Jerry seemed receptive to that, correct? Tom and Dan, they were part of the meeting as well. Now, one of the things we talked about was for years and years and years, and it's part of our second conversation, is the township was told that we can't make pedestrian safety improvements in the township because it's not allowed. And then shortly after my tenure started here, and John said, we met with and we changed municipal attorneys because previously the township didn't have a municipal attorney. We had an attorney, but he was not specializing in municipal work. And we had him review the language that John had kind of identified as being troublesome. And we went to the Road Commission and said, we think we should be able to do this. Here's the legal letter saying we can do this. And then the Road Commission came back and said, you're right, you can do this. And then they created a committee, and Kevin's going to be presenting about where that stuff is moving forward. But this wouldn't be the first time Ada Township pushed them on the issue. Now, what Jerry had kind of kindly asked is, don't try to push the legal side down our throat for the purposes of moving this forward. Like, I think we can all work together to get there. So what he was hoping to not see is us threaten to say, we're going to get our lawyers involved, we're going to sue. Because realistically, he's concerned about the residents suing, but Ada Township could sue just the same.
We're still keeping the two separate, pedestrian safety crosswalk.
Correct.
And that, okay.
Yeah. This is a separate piece. But the point of sharing that was the Road Commission has changed its position before. And so This is something that we presented on Friday. They had asked that we send over, our legal opinion similar to what we did previously with the pedestrian ordinance piece, but Jerry seemed to be receptive. And so one of my goals, if we can get a unified front from the board, is one, the meeting on the 28th is a road commission meeting. So it is not our board meeting. It is the road commission meeting. Now, all board members are able to come and welcome as public to be able to comment. What we would like to try to avoid is our board coming up and everyone's got a different opinion and it's different than potentially trying to achieve what the residents on 3 Mile Road want as well. And so my proposal would be to the board, if the board is comfortable with this course of action, I would communicate with the residents all along 3 Mile Road, let them know, one, there's the public hearing is scheduled on April 28th. Two, the township, plans on having a number of board members present, but we're also going to be providing a written letter outlining an alternative. And that alternative would be moving forward with a RAP treatment in 2026. It would be beginning the engineering work this as soon as possible so they can do survey work, and then potentially moving forward with the project in 2027. This can all happen without removal of the Natural Beauty Road designation. We want to communicate that to residents because I don't want the residents to feel like, hold on, why is Ada Township why are they against this? We're not against better maintenance of the road. We just think we found a better path than removal of the Natural Beauty Road designation. And that is not a fault of the residents either, because this is the feedback we were given by the road commission about the path that needed to be taken. And so I've talked for a while. I'm happy to open up to questions.
Well, let me just make a couple remarks related to it. I've been involved for over 30 years working with the road commission in Ada Township, trying to move the ball forward. And now granted, my role was on the planning commission as a member of the planning commission and so forth. We gained no traction with the road commission at all during the time until, frankly, now, literally now. And I'm saying, well, what's changed? Why is this so different all of a sudden? And the truth is that the road commission's simple formula and approach is to be a very simple body that wants very simple solutions for all of their road issues. And that if they just say no and you accept it, nothing happens. But as soon as someone is willing to do the lifting, the research, to delve deep into, to even take on the role of communication to the public, which is what we have done since the folks on 3 Mile came to us, is really brought this thing back to the forefront. They suddenly are much more accommodating. They also said very clearly to us the other day, Jerry Burns did, that the experience that I lived through watching Egypt Valley Road get destroyed is not what they do anymore. Additionally, since we are going to pay for half of, or more than half of whatever's done out there, ultimately, we have to approve that. And that with that seat at the table, we should have a lot of input as to the specifics of the engineering. Okay, let's address the hill itself. Let's address where the drainage issues are. But let's just not, cookie cutter, straight line, change the corridor. We have a real opportunity to do that. Now, it sounds like, from the way he said, that we have that opportunity whether the Natural Beauty Road designation's on the road or not, but that if we are trying to maintain the unique special character of, this is my personal opinion now, if we're trying to maintain the unique special character of Ada that we have, and I think we're closer to 20 miles of natural beauty roads in the township, that is a quality of life issue that makes this community unique. It's similar to Leelanau County, it's similar to parts of Oakland County. There's only a few handful of special areas in the state that really make these roads a big deal. If we can work through this on 3 Mile and get the 3 Mile residents comfortable with the solution, maintained and gently adjusted, it sets the formula for us to then maintain all the other natural beauty roads. And so I really hope that we're going to be willing to take the time and effort to do this, but because the the horse got out of the barn, so to speak, with this remove the natural beauty road designation. You know, Jerry even pointed out, he said, well, it's unfortunate that that document, meaning the signatures, arrived because they have to have the public hearing at this point no matter what. In other words, that ship has sailed. There will be a public hearing. And so we're now, as Julius explained, looking for the opportunity for us to communicate directly with all the residents to try to have them understand basically what he just said in this meeting already, so that when people do come here on that night or afternoon, whenever it is, for the meeting, that they won't just be, you know, we want it paved and remove it. We want to have this deeper conversation on behalf of the community as a whole, so.
Well, I talked to them quite a bit. The residents designated that they wanted they've already communicated that they wanted the designation removed by virtue, excuse me, of all the petitions that they signed. They don't want it paved. This is what I was told. It's not that they want it paved. They want a safe, flush road that's
Correct.
void of potholes.
Right.
And whatever it takes to do that, let's go forward and do it. Years ago, they were not aware of any other option but to pave it.
Correct, because when I kind of started, that because at our end, and none of the other communities that have natural beauty roads, and of course we have a lot more than everyone else in the county, no one had really just taken the time to say, well, look, we're going to go do the research and we're going to keep coming back at you gently and pleasantly and politely, but with more and more information to say this is what the state law really says. We value our community and we don't just want to leave it to you since we have to pay for it. And I think that the people, based on what you just said, it only supports that they'll understand that the designation has value, especially if the goal is to leave it in a more natural state, but it needs to be consistently safe and reliable.
Based on my communication with them, like I said, their main objective in this whole endeavor is to have a safe, flush road.
And that's the thing, is I think we can accomplish that without removal of the NBR. Now, obviously, we got to get buy-in from the road commission, and they seemed receptive when we talked Friday. But that would be the message that we would share at the April 28th public hearing. And hopefully by then, at the April 13th board meeting, we would have approved the engineering work to show we're moving forward with this. And so we have skin in the game, so to speak.
Yeah, to put a little more meat on the bone about the engineering money. Literally, the road was created in 1842 when they turned everything into square miles, and it was part of the big treaty. They literally have no records of this road. Mm-hmm. And that they're asking us, though, to foot the bill for that engineering work, and I believe we get half of the 45% of it back if we actually then implement the plan. And I believe we do need to approve that, and I believe it was it $75,000 that they wanted?
Yeah, I think approximately.
Yeah, it was approximate, because they're only going to bill us actually what they spend the money. They just estimated it, because they're going to do the engineering itself. But I think we're going to have a real opportunity to have a whole engineering set. They'll have some proposals, but we will also should have a seat at the table to push back specifically along the whole corridor. Well, why is this so much bigger and wider, and so forth, and actually end up with a design that we were involved with.
So we wouldn't have a seat at the table if we remove the natural beauty road designation, correct?
So, I mean, there's less of because then they're leading the charge instead of us kind of being collaborative. That would be our goal. I mean, I believe the state statute says that they're allowed to propose something, and then we determine whether a public hearing is held for the.
As a new natural beauty road,
Yes,
as it reads right now.
But if the natural beauty road is gone.
Yep. I think I understand the concept. This is a better way, in my mind, and I applaud Tom for all the research that you've done to bring this to our attention. And I was just thinking myself, I would actually think approving that engineering would be an act of goodwill for both parties, not only the residents on 3 Mile, but to the road commission as well. So I look forward to that being on the agenda on the 13th, it sounds like. So those are my thoughts.
Moving forward, though, what is the, the best plan for longevity purposes, for maintenance for that road. So let's say, okay, we go ahead with all this, the residents approve it first and foremost, because they're the ones that live there. When this road is fixed, if we go that route, what are the requirements, what are the obligations for the road commission moving forward?
So the road commission would have to keep it, I mean, a safe road. Now, what I would,
Because they haven't.
what I would say is, but with the engineering work and then potentially whatever minor construction project happens, they'd be able to improve drainage, improve the things that are creating the issue to be able to maintain it in the way that they're not able to right now.
He did say that, is he gonna, with the RAP treatment, which is on a 5-year cycle, meaning every 5 years, this RAP treatment would be redone, which is, it's not terribly expensive, but it's a maintenance item. But he said that, in particular in the spring, he's not gonna promise a completely pothole-free road during the thaw, okay? That's not gonna, but it will never be in the disastrous condition that
That it is now.
like certainly the stretch on Conservation, Dogwood and so forth that I was on during the thaw was unbelievable, how bad it was.
Well, I mean, again, my question is, I mean, of course, nobody could predict how a pothole is going to present itself and when. What I'm asking is for commitment from the road commission, for whatever path we take moving forward, for them to make a better commitment to
I think their
keep the
ability,
maintenance up.
I think their ability to keep the road in much better shape will be much easier once the specific drainage issues that cause the blowouts in particular are solved. The RAP treatment really holds the road together. Take the time to drive 2 Mile, it's had the treatment on it. You'll see that it is different, and then the issue of the steep hill and the narrowness, those are true engineering work that has to be done, and the road will be widened in those areas, and maybe the hill dropped a little bit and so forth. I mean, but we'll have to look at all those on a case,
I would think as well that, I mean, depending on what they determine at this meeting on the 28th, I mean, if it gets denied, the change, it still remains the natural beauty road. If they don't live up to the expectations that we all have now, that petition goes, I would think that residents, and then we know, then it addresses your question in a year, 3 years from now, to see, is that really working? Are they staying true to their word? And if they're not, then we consider, removing it because we're just not getting anywhere.
So I like this process. I think it's good. The question I have is, are we prepared though, to realization with 20 miles of natural beauty roads? The reality could be is if this goes through this way, we're gonna have all the other roads lined up to say we want to do the same. And are we prepared for that?
Yeah.
Or
So,
is it just, do we have certain ones that have,
yeah, so I mean, I would say there's specific ones that have unique characteristics. I mean, so we went through the RAP treatment on 2 Mile Road a couple years ago. We're gonna go with the treatment on Crampton, Leonard Conservation this year. But none of the roads we've received feedback like we've received on 3 Mile Road. And so, while yes, we have 20 miles of natural beauty roads, I do think we have the ability to do a much better job maintaining them. And I think for the most part, the road commission has done a fairly good job maintaining other roads. And so 2 Mile Road, I know before the RAP treatment, we received a lot of complaints. We received continued calls from at least one resident. We were able to address those when the road commission went back, did some maintenance work last year. And now it's in considerably better condition than 3 Mile Road or other areas. Does it mean it's going to be, perfect? Obviously not. A gravel road is never going to be as good as a paved road. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. But a gravel road with the proper drainage and proper maintenance that is able to be done because the water's not ponding on it. There's a number of benefits to it. And then obviously if the township doesn't feel comfortable in the future with the work that's been done, one, we're going to have to sign off on it. I mean, it's going to come to the board. We're going to be able to look and work through the residents of these are the trees to be removed. Everything will be flagged. This is what it's going to look like. This is where the drainage is going to be. And these are the improvements. And so it is going to be a capital cost in our budget every couple of years. I know we sit down, or I sit down with road commission every year, and this started a couple of years ago actually with the ARPA funding. And I said, we sit down and talk about paved roads every year, but we never talk about gravel roads. And I said, in your eyes, what are the worst gravel roads? Like, what needs attention? And that's when we started down the path of the RAP treatment on 2 Mile Road. We were originally scheduled to do conservation, Crampton and Leonard at the same time. We completed it, and then we said, well, hold on. Let's do one as kind of a pilot project before we get too far down the road. Because if we do this and it's a failure, we spend a considerable amount of money, and then we got 4 streets of residents yelling at us. But we feel like 2 Mile Road has been a success. Some communities, instead of RAP treatments, they use limestone. We weren't necessarily receptive to limestone because of the amount of dust and debris it puts on vehicles. And so we think this is the best path forward. Now, I can't guarantee that next spring there's not going to be, it's still a gravel road. What I'll say is the RAP treatment holds up considerably better, and this is also one part of the plan. So the first plan would be RAP treatment this year, because that can still get done in the current fiscal year in 2026. And then we work on the engineering, then we work with the residents to explain to them what the potential impacts are going to be. Because there's going to be trees removed, to what scale I don't know. But what we're trying to do is, instead of just do the Egypt Valley where they cut 66 feet of right of way on both sides, and they said they don't do that anymore. But we want to make sure that we're communicating and then also working with the residents. And I talked to Jerry and I said, have you guys posted the public hearing yet? And they said, yes. And I said, did you mail one to everyone on 3 Mile Road? And they said, no. And they said, no, we just have to post at 2 locations on the street. And I said, well, I'm going to end up mailing notices to everyone on 2 Mile or on 3 Mile Road because I want them to be aware of it. But we've kind of held off in case there's a direction from the board today where we can communicate, here's our plan that we plan on presenting, and we've presented to the road commission. We hope that the board, the public's supportive, and we're happy to answer questions of it before the April 28th public hearing.
But that's the thing that I'm talking about. Why wouldn't you send a notification to everybody?
That's what it is.
Because, so I will say, legally, they're not required to.
No, I know that. All I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is the residents need a firm commitment that the road commission is going to do what they're responsible and what they're obligated to do.
To further answer your question about how do you pay for these changes over, if 20 miles of these roads. Every year, the road commission gets together. I used to sit on a.
Tom, before you go into it, let me just point out to Dan, the main thing that impacts whether these roads need continual maintenance is traffic counts. And you've got these 20 roads, but the ones that have a lot of traffic, the 5 or 6, are the ones that get.
I'm not opposed to it, I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure we realize that with 20
Yeah,
miles. just-
that's
It's
why-
gonna become this domino effect at some point, oh, that's done so great, we have little traffic, but I want our roads perfect, it's gonna be.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't think you have to worry, we don't have to worry about all 20 roads, because they don't get beat up like these particular roads do.
Anyway, all I was going to say is that each year the township sits with the road commission on road infrastructure. Julius already brought up, why don't we ever talk about the dirt roads or the gravel roads? The point is that we will bring the gravel roads into the conversation, look at the broader budget, and that potentially it could slow down a chip and seal on one road gets pushed back a year, so those funds are freed up to do one, and we will, over a period like our 10-year plan, be able to basically accomplish it without, having a huge financial hit. The other thing is just for the public's edification. We have if they did, without the natural beauty road status, they came in and they suggested that they wanted to pave it to regular standards. It'd have huge amounts of engineering, huge amounts of tree removal, because the standards for a paved road are another 4 feet wider than the gravel road. We would pay half of the cost of that, which would be, easily in the millions of dollars. The traffic would then be able to, they take into account that once it becomes paved, it becomes a cut-through road. In other words, it suddenly becomes a road that other people want to use. Additionally, the speeds go from basically a crawl overall, to a few crazy, I know there's always a few crazy people, to everyone going 45 or 50 miles an hour. And then I can hear the next thing that will happen is that people on the road will be saying, hi, the people go so fast I can never go out and take a walk anymore. Can we have a trail? And then we'll end up with another $1 million to build a trail along there. So when you look at some of those questions financially, trying to keep the status quo and solve this through granular effort, which they're now open to, is the right approach.
No, I like this. I think it's a good approach. I think it's, just hope that they follow through and let's take care of them and, you know, get it solved. And I do agree that once we get the engineering done correctly and built correctly, also the maintenance costs for Kent County should be reduced as well. So I'm hoping.
Yeah, it should be a win for them,
It's a
absolutely.
win-win for everybody.
Yeah, right, so,
Good.
so.
The RAP treatment on 2 Mile significantly reduced the amount of complaints about 2 Mile Road.
And 2 Miles got a heavy traffic because the high school is right there too, in
Yeah.
one stretch. And there's also a sizable subdivision, bridle path, I believe it's called, on the north side of 2 Mile, to the west of Egypt Valley, that's got a lot of houses in it, that uses that stretch of 2 Mile to get to Pettus.
Me and Bob, that's when you and I, when I was first on the board years ago, one of the early meetings we had was talking about wanting to pave 2 Mile. And that's when it came up early on, long before everything was here, so it was like,
It has not come up since.
yeah, it's been good, so it's good to hear.
Well, I was saying, I drove down it last week, and it's in pretty good shape, real good shape.
Right, so we done with this? We basically have a level of support for us to be on the 13th to approve the budget.
I didn't know if, just because we have other items and not knowing if the residents for 3 Mile Road, if they wanted to stick around for the next public, if you wanted to open up and just allow them if they had any questions or feedback.
Do you have any, do you
Sure,
want? Yeah, go.
My name's Greg Beagle, I live on Dogwood, so we're following this because we have similar issues, or we're gonna run into it. I'm pleased to hear you guys say you're gonna step up. We live on the bottom of one of the Dogwood Hills. We battle gravel. So in 5 years, we're up 8 inches. We had to put in a new driveway. We met, so my wife's family's owned the house in '66. They encouraged us 15 years ago to raise our driveway because we battled with it, raised it 6 inches, rebuilt, and I'm already 8 inches higher. Where does all that gravel go? So we meet with them, we talk to them. They do not give us the time of day. You know, so the fact that you guys are stepping up, we're thankful. We don't want to get rid of the road. We love it, so thank you very much.
Sir, what was your name, please?
Greg Beagle, Greg and Tracy.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'm Rosalie Clark, and I do live on 3 Mile. And I appreciate all that Jennifer has done to make you aware of the trouble that we have had on the road. But the Road Commission has done great in the last, few weeks or so. But I've been very thankful for that. And I really like the RAP treatment. And I do enjoy that it is a natural beauty road, and I do like walking on it. So I thought the only way to fix it was to pave it. But if there's another way, I would love to see it go that way. So thank you for your work.
All right, great, thank you.
I don't have, I just have a quick question. Is this public hearing you're talking about on the 28th here open to the public?
It's here, yes.
Okay,
It's here.
That would be very helpful to have that, people notified, because if people don't have to know, like we did, so yeah.
Right, and we'll be sitting in the audience with you guys.
Yeah, because it's a public hearing of the Kent County Road Commission Board.
I didn't know if it was gonna be somewhere at the road commission.
No, they come here to us.
You can go on our website, all of our agendas are always
No, we
posted.
look at that, but
Yeah.
we don't
Great,
know,
great.
other people don't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah, so we're gonna put it on our website, communicate it, but we'll be mailing specific notices to the residents on 3 Mile Road in the stretch that's under consideration, but we're not necessarily mailing residents to notices to everyone in the township. But definitely share that word if you got neighbors who are interested. Again, that's only gonna be specific to 3 Mile Road in that stretch.
Okay, so we're ready to move on to item B. If you guys have the time, you might want to listen to this too, just because it's so affected by the road commission. It's all about,
Actually, I'm
Sure.
sorry. I want to address something that Dan said. It's not like on Dogwood, it's only certain parts that are gonna need the engineering. Their answer is great. The road commission dumps gravel by the truckloads. I mean, if I had an olive for every time a truck went down our road this year. So they're gonna have a tremendous savings. So number one, they don't have to fix everything. Hills are the worst, the washouts are the worst. The other thing everyone should be aware of is the number of bikes now, since the bike path has come in. I think Dogwood, these beauty roads are
Correct, and that's why we're trying to
Oh, absolutely.
do that effort for them, because Ada is clearly unique based on what he's gonna talk about, because no one else has done this either. We're hoeing a whole road here with the road commission on safety, so.
Kevin, are you,
Joe, could you select the podium button on that screen right there?
Got it?
Real quick.
Got it?
Let's see. Should be responding. There we are. All right. Good afternoon, Township Board. Kevin Austin, your DDA Director. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of an update on the creation of our pedestrian safety ordinance. This is meant to be kind of a preface to the actual kind of hearings and discussion that we intend to conduct over the next month and a half here. So just a little bit of background for the audience, and also to frame you guys' mind around the pedestrian safety ordinance. Julius had kind of alluded to the fact that a couple of years ago, the township definitely started asking very specific questions about Ada Township's authority to change certain interactions and laws and signage and things like that around pedestrian safety. Specifically, I think we were focused on the DDA, on the downtown, with pedestrian experience in the historic area, but also with the A and B block coming online and just more circulation in general. That ended up yielding a little bit of discussion around what authority we did have, and I believe you guys did publish a specific ordinance or a policy that you had for the intent to install rapid flashing beacons, or rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which are RRFBs. That direction that you guys took to deliberately kind of post that ordinance and take that angle, I think really kind of made it so the Road Commission became an active player in the Grand Valley Metro Council. They might have been before, but there's a regional standardization that is happening amongst quite a few of the municipalities around Grand Rapids, that everybody's trying to come around to a standard policy, or at least an acknowledgement of the poor pedestrian safety priorities that almost everybody has. I mean, the state of Michigan is pretty rare if you go to a lot of other states that have pedestrian laws and things like that. So the GVMC has done a pretty good job over the past, I think, couple of years to get a lot of people in the room to talk about different treatments and enhancements and things like that, and just what the current lay of the land is for municipalities that are trying to encounter this or trying to find a way to improve this experience. As we've said, Ada Township is unique because it is a township, and by that name typically communicates a more rural environment, less built downtown and kind of urban environment, but we do have that, and we continue to invest in that, and it continues to grow in vibrancy and business and quality of life for people down here. So I have been working with TJ Likens from the Road Commission, also with the Grand Valley Metro Council Regional Standardization, which John said your planning director has been a part of for quite a long time here. And when we asked to do some pedestrian crossings both at Bronson and Ada Drive, and then also at Thornapple River and excuse me, I'm blanking on it, Face Street. Those are the two big ones that we get a lot of complaints on for pedestrians. They basically did tell us, because the Ada Township does not have a pedestrian crossing ordinance or does not require the right-of-way to be given to pedestrians at crosswalks, then you are not allowed to do these type of simple signage amendments, enhancements, and things like that. So that ended up yielding the direction of us changing or starting to draft the ordinance to change that, so that the actual law is changed. That recommendation has been given to the city of Walker. It's been given to, I think, the city of Granville, East Grand Rapids, and just a bunch of people around the area that are continuing to kind of make this change. So since that time, I began to draft an ordinance that had a departure from the Uniform Traffic Code. Michigan Vehicle Code is current law that is regulating our streets right now. That's the MVC, written in like 1949, I believe. That is what infractions are charged under and things like that. The Uniform Traffic Code was created by the Michigan State Police as a policy that people can utilize and adopt to further enhance some of the regulations. It's a little bit more contemporary, and it continues to be updated. So that group had talked about utilizing the UTC as a departure point, or a couple of different methods that municipalities could take. One was drafting your own ordinance, completely your own ordinance. The second one was adopting the Uniform Traffic Code as is, and which does have some language about what a pedestrian's right is at a marked crosswalk. The Michigan Vehicle Code right now is completely silent on pedestrians at crosswalks. And then the third option is to adopt the Uniform Traffic Code and then make some alterations. So we started evaluating adopting the UTC as a reference, and then so we would get all of those protections or all those enforcements, and then amending language. So what you see in this document right here, this was assembled by the GVMC and was part of their official guidance that went out, kind of talking about what it's like in the region for the current law and the enforcement on the streets, and then talking specifically about the changes that municipalities could make to change the experience and the recommended experience for pedestrians at crosswalks. So they gave us specific language, what to cross out in relation to some of the UTC provisions. And talking with TJ Likens, he was another advocate of stopping, not yielding. So basically changing it so that the law does require the car to stop for a pedestrian, not to yield. So there is no confusion in that. And they started, his time with the GVMC started to get them to talk about these enhancements, different type of enhancements. So in-street signage, different pavement markings for crosswalks, and things like that. And so I've continuously been talking to him. He was the one that did approve our pilot program for our crosswalk at Thornapple River and Faze, leading to the bridge, to Covered Bridge Park South, which we intend on implementing as soon as the park is done. And so he's been a good person to continue to talk to, and obviously somebody that we need to continue to discuss with as we want to implement certain enhancements and things like that. But if you look at the screen now, you can see this is some guidance that was created, again, by GVMC, and to talk about the process for identifying different treatment options and things like that. We are fortunate that for many years, we've gathered a lot of data at some of our crosswalks. We've had counters out there. We will have counters out there again this year. We've moved them just a little bit to try to take advantage of the completion of Covered Bridge Park North and South and what we think the pedestrian circulation might look like after that. And so what I really kind of focus on, they go into this spot here, more details on determining what the law is in a working group recommendation. And every time you see working group recommendation, just think some of the planners, some of the zoning officials, and some of the township managers and city managers of regional entities, and also County Road Commission. So if you look at step 3, identifying treatment options, they've basically highlighted low-intensity environments and high-intensity environments, and they give some details on what the GVMC has said those are. 3 lanes or less, 9,000 ADT or average daily traffic, 35 miles per hour or below, and then kind of separated those. Talked about base treatments, when even the base treatments, I can tell you I've already identified some things that need to be improved and that we'll work on. But then also they get into treatments for low intensity environments. So things that we want to be able to do once we change that ordinance. So once the ordinance does say that vehicles are required to stop for pedestrians, it opens up our ability to implement some of these things. Something important to note is that it does say the following list of treatments are recommended for but not limited to low intensity environments. So that inherently from GVMC has a bit of flexibility in that. And I can tell you that the Road Commission is, I think they're working closely with us on this because they know we're probably one of the first, but we are definitely not the last to be asking for these type of changes. And so they want to kind of establish what they believe their standard to be, so that when the next person comes and asks, they can talk about different metrics and things like that. We have some unique metrics just in the downtown alone. Julius likes to inform people about the parity between M21 and Thornapple River, which is kind of crazy, leading out to M21. roughly between 12,000 cars a day, both. But something to note is that this is a reference that the traffic engineer or safety engineer that we would be kind of working with and checking things off of is continuing to endorse this stuff and the reference that this work group continues to do. So the work group is kind of leveraging some of their positions and everything to continue to get some consensus in the area. But we are continuing to doctor some of the actual language that we would be adopting to give us our own personal chapter in our own ordinance to accomplish some of these things. And then after that, talking about kind of a policy for the different type of treatments and things like that. So you guys have any questions for me? I know that was a lot, but I have some of these references here. They go down all the way into specific crossings. So they got RRFB references. They bring in different regional cities of East Grand Rapids. They have the references from the cities that they bounced off of, some of the best practices and things like that. Here's an example of a choke down, which is usually very effective, some raised bumps or raised speed bumps and things like that. But and then they get into the high intensity environments and all that. But do you guys have any questions for me?
Are we limited, Kevin, on the number? Because I see like over by the library, especially when we have the new building built and the farmer's market and all the activity that's gone on there, that's a rather dangerous section if you're because of parked cars and what have you, cutting through. I think it'd be wise to make sure that we're not limited to only five spots.
Yeah, they haven't articulated any type of metric on establishing the total quantity in a certain space, a certain amount of road or anything like that. Obviously, the verbiage that we adopt would dictate which ones would receive this type of marking, and at a minimum, the crossings that we do have, especially in the DDA, I would expect would receive the rectangular signage that you sometimes see in road on those epoxy, we call them the lollipops. And then at a maximum, you start talking about RRFBs and things like that. I know that was a part of a design plan for one of the crossings coming from Covered Bridge Park North. So they haven't talked about any specific or restriction on the number. One thing that Julius and I do note is that there are two crossings very close to each other, right by Covered Bridge Park North, one by the Veterans Memorial, which gets a good amount of use. We're going to put a counter on that one this spring, or basically from, I believe, end of May into June, and then again at Foxtail, so right there at River Street. That is part of that discussion. We've talked about what the possibility might be to talk about if we did have to minimize, because that's a lot in a short amount of area, what that might look like to direct people to the more critical juncture or more critical crossing, and things like that, but nothing specifically on those numbers.
Kevin, can you touch on specifically the low speed DDA district versus like Pettis or Honey Creek or even Ada Drive at Ada Croft?
Yes, thank you. I forgot about that. So something Julius brought up, we have a lot of trail crossings. We just talked about that just recently. We are looking for the ability and the verbiage to designate the marked crossing as a certain signage and threshold to then put that legal requirement for the stop for the vehicle on that crossing. Not necessarily that any crosswalk, as people could interpret, has that rule so that people go, oh, I saw that on the the township's Facebook page. I saw it on on the website, on all that other stuff. I know that vehicles have to stop for me now. I'm good to go. And most of the trail crossings. So there was a desire for kind of regional change, ironically, from either the road commission or some of those entities to talk about changing behavior even at those situations. But I think we know they did give some guidance in terms of language, and I'll just put it up on the screen right here. That is responsibilities. So alternative crossing scenarios. So this one talks about high volume, high speed, low visibility, things like that. Language that really makes sure that the at least in our ordinance, it does not exempt the trail user from any responsibility in navigating that crossing safely. So it does, they are still aware, we do require, or we do post stop signage for the trail user, not for, not for the vehicle user in that situation, but trying to differentiate those two things. It was something that was kind of instructed from Julius and then kind of echoed by a few people. So we're looking to make sure that there is a separation there. So we do have that focus and priority here in downtown, and the counts are up and things like that. But we do know there are some high volume traffic or high volume trail junctures as well that is something that we can definitely evaluate in the future. But at least this would start to give us a chapter where we can begin to add additional provisions as we see fit. We just don't have any chapter right now that we can add stuff to.
Yeah, one of the concerns was, pedestrian crossings are great, but if you're on Pettus and you're going, let's say 55, because that's the speed limit, if someone steps out in front of your car, we don't want someone locking up their brakes. I mean, realistically, we don't want someone stopping at 55 to allow one pedestrian to go because the traffic counts aren't there. And so we wanted to make sure there's language and signage, and it's very clear. So part of this will be an educational campaign. Part of it will be not only signage for the road vehicle, and how they interact with the crossing, but also the trail, to let those individuals know that cross traffic does not stop. Because we don't want someone stepping out in front of a vehicle on Pettus or on Honey Creek, but we also, or even on Ada Drive, Ada Croft. And right now, it's funny because I have seen behavior change. So more and more people are stopping, which is good. But now it's starting to leak out of downtown. And the other day I was driving on Ada Drive, and the person in front of me decided to stop because someone on an e-bike just zipped right across. And we both kind of locked up our brakes, and I thought, this is not where we want this to be happening. There's a big difference between the downtown infrastructure versus Ada Drive versus Pettus and Honey Creek.
I think that can be totally solved by additional signs on the trails and additional safety things. Coming 25 feet, 50 feet, something further out that they can't miss.
Yeah, the reality is that anybody who enters a crosswalk, whether or not you saw the car or not, or the driver still has that legal requirement to make every effort to stop that, and we want language so that it does indicate to a pedestrian that you have a requirement to find a clear path. You do not have the legal right of way in this scenario, despite what we've changed in other locations if the marking is different, the signage is different, and things like that. Because kind of right now they did provide some language to talk about that, but they didn't really address the inconsistency between what we might interpret as a marked crosswalk, which is just the outline of the man crossing, and what could be a more heavily marked crosswalk, whether that's RFB or additional stop for pedestrian signage or an in-road sign. They kind of didn't address that at a rail or a trail crossing like you see in the picture. There might be inconsistencies with that driver. That driver might go, oh, well, that's a crosswalk to me. I see people waiting to cross. So we just want to try to get in front of that and find a way to mitigate that. Obviously, it's still going to be a lot of personal responsibility, but yeah.
What kind of timeline are we looking at? I know you've made some tremendous progress from where we started to now, but realistically, when can we see implementation of some sort of crosswalk at the two intersections that you spoke of earlier in the downtown area?
So the pilot program, regardless of the pilot program that was approved by the Road Commission for what is a choke down at the entrance to Covered Bridge Park South from the sidewalk on the other side, that will be happening regardless of this, because if it happens, if we don't have a good product and we continue to want to refine, that is still a complete streets pilot program that we want to gather data from as a possible enhancement. If it does pass, then we will have a different rule there for people's crossing. They will have a stop for pedestrian crossing or a rule there at that location. But in terms of in-road signage here on Bronson and things like that, for us to approve an ordinance that you guys would endorse and you would approve, and then for us to post that. I believe it's 30 days after the posting. I have to double check that, but for an ordinance, I wouldn't hope that once it was approved, I had the ability to, I've set aside funds in the DDA to purchase this type of signage if there is some type of reluctance or agreement with Kent County Road Commission. Obviously, this is kind of new territory for them too. So we haven't ironed out, what they're willing to purchase for us. If we have higher aspirations, at least we do have the funds to do that. But I'm hoping to get this in front of you guys, at least for the first look over by the second meeting in April. And if that looks good, then post it for a public hearing. But there are still some ordinance and word and verbiage creation that we have to iron out in that time.
One word of caution that I see, choke points they definitely slow traffic.
Mm-hmm.
However, we've got such a high traffic count already. The worst thing in the world that we can do is now divert traffic to find a way around Ada. Because think of the school days, special activities, all the time. In fact, even coming here today. It's a busy road,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to choke down traffic any further. All for making sure that people are safe, everyone's aware, there's proper signage galore, however that can be done.
Mm-hmm.
But we really do need, we've had some very irate phone calls over time because we're slowing the traffic. So slowing is one thing, but choking it becomes a second.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that we gotta be just a little bit careful, especially on the main thoroughfares.
Mm-hmm. And by choke, Bob, do you mean specifically trying to reduce the vehicle count, or you just mean the choke down in the infrastructure, like the actual sidewalk infrastructure? Gotcha. Okay.
We still want to be able to have the same amount of vehicle count go through,
Mm-hmm.
and in hopes of everything that we're doing and have done. However, we don't want to throw additional, especially if we're going to have traffic stopping now for pedestrians. Oh my.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is talking with my board, trying to continue to evaluate their priorities for this. I think that's definitely a good balance and a discussion to be struck, or a balance to be struck, a good discussion. I think some of the priorities have been out of whack for a very long time in terms of towards the automobile. And there is definitely some progress to be made to try to balance those things out. And it can only yield good results for certain environments, but there is a readjustment, I think, that needs to be partially made. But I see what you're saying in terms of not wanting to make that such a stark contrast or such a vast change, but making improvements that we know will yield some significant benefits to the DDA and to the downtown district as well.
Just a word of caution.
I'm so happy to hear this. This has been years of,
Yeah, what, 20 years?
11 years we've been talking about this, and I think I'm just so grateful that we're actually gonna potentially, I think we've, as I've said for years, I just don't wanna see something happen with a pedestrian, and keep getting lucky, and I just so happy we're actually moving this direction.
All right, so did your question, when will we get a draft ordinance?
Based off of some conversation we had today with Julius and I in talking with legal, I would expect to give you a draft ordinance in your second board packet of April.
Yeah, and it was funny, we had our meeting today, and originally I only had 3 Mile Road and then the Township Hall internal. And I said, Kevin, I want to add you to the agenda because I think this is a really good topic to cover in a work session as opposed to during the meat of our regular meeting, which we had talked about putting it on as introduction for the April 13th board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a much more effective way to do that.
So Julius, you've managed to now get the Kent County Road Commission to realize about the part about crosswalks and about natural beauty roads.
Hopefully.
What next do we need to run from the Kent County Road Commission that they don't know what they're doing at this point?
Exactly.
Well, I guess we'll find out when we get there.
Okay, all right, we ready to move on? All right, thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All your tremendous work on that. You've really been carrying that baton, so we appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Now we're ready to move on to discuss the preliminary Township Hall internal layout.
Yep. Joe, can you hit 5, I think there's 5 on there.
Just, if we get into this lengthy, I've got my dogs in the car, which they're fine, but one has to have a pill at 5:45. So if I disappear for a minute,
What kind of dogs you got?
there's 2, they're Rottweilers.
Bring them on in, come on.
I fully anticipate we'll be done by 5:45 because I gotta get my daughters to basketball.
Yeah, I agree.
All I know is that she has seizures and she has to have her pill exactly at the right time of day.
Golden retrievers that have to be in here.
So just wanted to give an update, again, looking at what we were doing for the work session, I thought this is an opportune time to have a conversation about the Township Hall. So April 13th, we're going to be meeting with, Notre Dame's going to be presenting their final report. And the final report covers much more than just the Township Hall. But the Township Hall is one of the main focal points for myself as we try to identify how we move forward. Ken Dixon with Dixon Architecture had submitted to me a proposal a couple months back, and it was for design engineering on a 23,000 square foot building. And I said, Ken, that's a really big building. I said, I don't think we need 23,000 square feet. I know the Notre Dame concept is going to be around 23,000 square feet. And he said, well, when will you have an idea? And I said, well, once Notre Dame gets closer to the final report, because we didn't want to step on their toes. But now that they provided it, and I did communicate to Marianne that we were going to be chopping this up a little bit. But basically, I wanted to go through the first floor, second floor. And again, I wanted to be able to provide an understanding of what the actual space is, what is maybe extra, and what is actual workspace. And so I've included a handout to each of you that has the layout that you see right here, which is the first and second floor. My focus is on the first and second floor. On the back of the sheet is actually the attic space, and then the roof, and the attic space is around 3,500 square feet. And that's intended to be just storage. So that will be storage for whether it's township files, whether it's records, whether it's decorations, whatever it might be. It doesn't mean we're not going to have storage in other parts of Township Hall, but this is kind of the catch-all be-all that is part of the house next door, part of the water tower, part of every other property that Stephanie has to go and store files at. And so in looking at their layout from Notre Dame, their building layout's 23,300. That's the building gross square footage. And so I went through the actual offices, and I started putting stickies on it. I had a big 24 by 36 sheet. Ironically, it would have been really good for a work session at the library because I could have put it out. But I can talk through it here. And so essentially the first floor, which is on the left side, is made up of the treasurer's office, the deputy treasurer's office, the utility accountant's office, the deputy clerk's office, the clerk's office. There is election storage, so there's a room 27 by 19 and a half for just election stuff. So that's whether it's files, records, machines, whatever the state requires. We also have another storage room next to it. We move into water closets, restrooms. We have storage and mechanical on the right side of the building. Just south of the storage and mechanical, you'll see a long hallway. That long hallway is intended to be a hallway for the board to enter the meeting room. And so one of the pieces we've talked a little bit about has been just us having our backs and the board having their backs to those who are entering. This would allow the assembly hall to be set up in a way that the board would enter from behind, so not entering in the same door as other, and again, this could be kept, this could be removed. This is a concept plan. So it's, for a concept plan, it's very, very detailed. So I don't want anyone to get hung up on a specific size, a specific piece, because Ken is still going to take this concept design and then really refine it, really go through what's buildable, what's not, how can we find efficiencies. And so just sharing that. Assembly hall is 32 by 56, which I think is the same size as this building, as this here. The idea behind the assembly hall would be it would not be pews. We're not bringing these with us. This, it would be very similar to Grand Rapids Township Hall or other buildings where that is all flexible space with chairs where it can be moved. It can be conference room. So it turns into basically community room 1. For us to have the ability of that here, which if we had that here, that would be really helpful and keep us out of the Rick's room. Moving on, we've got next to the Assembly Hall, there's a really large Assembly Hall vestibule. So again, there's pieces I think that can be pulled out. You know, that's a 12 by 12 area, 144 square feet. That just seems like a little bit of a waste of a space. But it does connect to a conference room. I think there's a better way to connect that conference room. The idea behind a first floor conference room that is in the public area is so that staff can meet with residents, whether it's the clerk's office meeting with someone for a cemetery or burial, as opposed to standing at the counter with them while they're crying or they're going through, you know, an emotional roller coaster. You know, the staff is able to pull them into another a room, sit down with them, give them the time they need. Same thing for the assessing. I talked to Stephanie about having a computer in one of the rooms so they can pull up BSNA. They can show the public records without bringing them back into the private workspace. Because again, we want to try to keep employees safe. We want to try to keep employees separated from the public to a certain degree. Here we have full autonomy where people can walk around and poke their head in everywhere. And so just making sure our building's a little bit more secure. We've got 2 public seating areas next to a vestibule. Again, we have a public lobbies that's 32 by 20. So I think that's an area that could be reduced. And the public seating area could be in the public lobby as opposed to 2 separate areas. On the left side, we have a large conference room breakout. We've got cubicles, which would be, you know, Sydney, our front office admin. It would be Eli with assessing. It would be Kylie with assessing and potential intern spots. And so the first floor is actually pretty tight in terms of its usable space. When I looked at how I could refine the first floor, I mean, I was able to get rid of the public seating areas for a reduction of about 187 square feet. But realistically, the main floor was around 9,271 usable feet. So that's not talking, you know, the elevator. That's not some of the mechanical pieces in between. But that was office space and office work areas. That's not the hallways in between. But again, trying to get to a place of what can we actually reduce. And the reason I say reduce is, again, we're starting with 23,000 square feet. When we get to the April 13th meeting, and the public says, wow, this building is really large. Why does the township need a 23,000 square foot building? The point is, it's not a 23,000 square foot. This is a concept, and now we're going to take it and revise it further. But even in our preliminary piece, we think we can cut X amount of square feet out of it. And again, it doesn't mean that Notre Dame didn't do a good job. I think Notre Dame has done a high-level concept at a lot of different pieces, but their main focus was on the architectural component. And they've taken what we've given them, they've upsized it a little bit, kind of wishes and dreams, and now we need to take wishes and dreams and then put dollar amounts to them to then kind of back out of it. If we look at the second floor, so the second floor starts getting a little bit just oversized. You come up the main stairs in the middle of the middle of the building. Again, you have a public lobby as well. Again, that's a very large public lobby. The original thought was to have a counter on that side as well as potentially a counter on the other side because the Parks office was going to be located in Township Hall. Now that the Parks office is not located in Township Hall, there is the need to remove some offices as well as office cubicle space that would have been assigned to park staff, parks interns. Essentially, the entire right side that comes up for, let's zoom in here. So this entire right side, so right here, is extra space. It doesn't mean that we couldn't use it, but right now those areas are just too large, not necessary. We've got the township manager's office. We had a parks office that needs to be removed. We have the supervisor's office. We had an additional office, so that could potentially be a future staff member. There's a couched area right here. We don't necessarily need that. What I would do is probably put a wall there and change that to a wellness room. So that would be, for lactation room, as well as just if someone's having a really bad day and needs to get out of their office and You know, we did that at Michigan Software Labs. There was quite a few rooms where there's just soothing music and colors and a little fridge of water and like, hey, you need to check out for a second and have a come to Jesus with yourself. Like that's an opportunity to do it. And then as we move up the map, there's a break room that's considerable in size. I mean, our break room right now is not anywhere near this size. This one, I think, seats 26 people with the full bar and the 6 tabletops. We could have all of our employees in there, and we still, I don't think, would use all of our seats. And so, again, I think that could be shaved down, and I'll get into specific sizes that I think could be cut down. There's a breakout right here between the bathrooms. There's 2 conference rooms on each side of the public seating. There's a really large conference room here that's 37 by 20. That seats, I don't know, 6, 3, 6, 9, 12, 20, about 30 people. And then we've got 2 more conference breakout rooms. We've got offices of the planning director. I don't know how the planning director got the largest office in the whole building, 16 by 10. To make sure we get that corrected. Planning, zoning administrator's office next door, the assessor's office next door, DDA office, DDA director office, as well as this is Ann's office right here. So we have found a home for Ann. I think on one of the original stickies I didn't have anywhere for. And the idea being, you know, trying to identify advantages for line of sight. So although we're going to have our planning admin up here, we want, and Eli, as well as Kylie, we want to make sure that other staff have a line of sight to that counter to make sure that department heads are present, department heads are able to step up. Same thing on the first floor, whether it's Treasurer Moran or Clerk DeMarco. If they see a resident, say, oh wait, I know what they're here for, I want to pop out and talk to them. One of the things that really wasn't shown in this, and again, it's a concept plan, we don't really have a mail room, we don't really have the copy machines on each floor. I think that could be taken up by some of the workspaces here. But when I look at the square footage for the second floor offices, I think we could get rid of 1 bank of the workspaces, which is over by my wing. I think we could get rid of 2 of the 3 breakouts, which would still leave us with the conference room. I think we could get rid of the large conference room as well. Actually, I think we could get rid of 3 of the conference rooms on the second floor, because that would require staff to then be in the conference rooms on the main floor, as well as the assembly hall, which also doubles as a conference room. You know, when we go to the public and try to say how much the building costs and they look at the layout, I don't want them to see 9 conference rooms or all these, you know, public seating areas. It's trying to be as efficient as possible with minimal space. So I was able to cut out, and this is me just doing kind of back of the napkin math, 3,381 square feet. So that brings us to, you know, around just under 20,000. I think there's probably even a little bit more to cut. You could potentially, because the public lobbies are huge. And so again, that's a piece that Ken will get further into. But I did want to have this conversation today. I know we talked before about, well, we had 16,000, 18,000, 21, 23. Let's throw out 16, 18. Let's throw out 21, 23. And then how do we kind of get a number we're comfortable with? Mm-hmm. This, I think, helps us get a little bit more definition on what that number is. I don't think we need to go north of 20,000. I think there's an opportunity to go in between that, maybe 18 to 20. If we really wanted to get a little bit more specific, we probably could. We could start looking at chopping up a little bit more of the storage spaces if we're going to have 3,500 square feet on top. We could start looking at the hallways and all of the cubicle areas and really trying to maximize space. This is just a really, really generic concept to try to give us a number. When we meet with individuals, and we're going to be having Notre Dame available to meet with business owners and the ABA and the DDA, and someone says, the building's too big, we want to be able to say, yes, this is a concept. We think we're going to be able to narrow it down. That has yet to come. But if we remove some of these places, we're at least under 20,000 square feet. This still gives us room to grow, not only now, but into the future, with a number of additional workspaces, a number of additional offices. I can't predict 50 years from now or 100 years from now, but Ada Township's never going to evolve or grow past about 16,500 people 15,500 people, realistically. With our density, with utility constraints, with not developing north of the river, we're not going to become Kentwood, we're not becoming Wyoming or Walker. And so realistically, I don't see us adding 5-6 staff. If we're going to add staff, it's going to be in the parks and then the buildings, facilities, grounds, because those are the biggest service area needs. Now, this doesn't mean we couldn't have, and I know Treasurer Moran's talked about it before, so I'm not saying it on his behalf, but, what if the township ever moved to a full-time finance director and the treasurer was part-time? Same thing for the clerk. Like, again, we have to try to envision what could come. At one point, my position wasn't a part of the township structure. And so we want to make sure we're not so short-sighted that we get into a position where we're building offices and conference rooms, like we did for our DDA director, but also being good stewards of the finances. I haven't run numbers on, okay, let's revisit, because quite frankly, so much has changed in the world economy of construction costs, of oil, and so I wouldn't venture a guess on that road, but just wanted to present this, get feedback, talk through, answer any questions, and see what the board, what I'd like to do is be able to at least give Ken Dixon an idea. April 13th, Notre Dame presents. At the following meeting, if everyone's receptive, then we have a proposal from Ken Dixon to say we're going to move forward with engineering design for a range as opposed to 23,000 square foot. Maybe it's a certain range. And we could whittle this number down further, but just wanted to take a stab at it.
I remember we said eliminate the 16,000, eliminate the 23. We did talk about that 20,000 would be just right. Is Notre Dame presenting at the board meeting, or is this a separate meeting?
So we have on the 13th, we have our board meeting. This is a work session that's at 3 o'clock.
At 3 o'clock.
Yep.
Just a question, could you refresh me? What was the number that Integrated came up with when they did?
It was about 16,000.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
And what's the number of this building?
8,500.
That's why I want to stick to it. I mean, the sense, not to the size, but I think we got to remind that we had a space
Yeah.
assessment done, we had that, but this gives us some room for growth. I think it gives us, 16 to 18 to 19-ish.
Yeah. And
Gives
so
us a reasonable of we're within the
Yeah.
area of that. It's not like it's going 16 to 24,000. It's being, it's.
Yeah, because we could even, I'll be honest, we could potentially make the assembly hall a little bit smaller. We could narrow up some of the work. We didn't get so far into the weeds in some of it, but I think I'd be pretty comfortable saying you could cut at least 4,000 square feet out to get us to 19, and you could probably go a little bit lower. But that would need more detail and work with department heads.
I wouldn't go that far until we get more into the weeds about.
Correct, yeah. Then that's what I say. We could, but that's a bigger exercise.
Because there are definitely a lot of meeting rooms.
Yeah.
Definitely what?
There
A lot
are,
of
but
conference rooms, a lot of meeting
I
rooms.
agree with you on that, Dan, but
Well-
for example, the one thing that I'm looking at is I want to go next door and measure the space that we already have where all of our election equipment is literally stuffed in.
Maybe
So we might need to add to that storage area.
the conference rooms, in my, I have no problem slicing off. I just did my own little analysis. I came up with 4,000 square feet pretty easily. But I look at the conference rooms as being, would you call them white box space or something?
Yeah, right.
That's really what I perceive the conference rooms to be if we wanted to have the larger size. Yeah, you gotta do something with the space in the interim, but think about what we did to the multi-purpose room here. I've been here long enough to see it go from being a nice usable room to being, sliced and diced.
Multi-purpose room.
The Rick's room.
The Rick's room was wide open. It was one big space before. We used to have meetings and stuff in there before.
I'm gonna ask you all to remember one thing. We have to have early voting at the library, and when people are complaining about having to take the elevator to go up the stairs, I'm the one that has to hear about it. Yeah.
I'm not opposed, I guess the question I'm saying is just, I think if it's designed the right way, and it's white box space, as long as it's laid out in a room that says, fine, this can be turned into 3 offices if we need, if not, it can be, I think the idea is that we're gonna get a lot further with our community by having those things thought out, just saying, because obviously our windows placed in a place and this could be turned into 3 offices. Standards, that's what we've done, obviously do with a lot of Grand Valley in our buildings, is we really look at them saying, okay, if we have a 50-year horizon for a building, where's our flexibility down the road if we need to do things?
Given what you were saying about growth of staff in the facility, us leaning conservative isn't gonna be that big of a deal. I mean, because of the parks being not in the building.
Correct, yeah, I mean, the parks is the big equation, and when we first started this conversation, obviously they were in the equation, now they're removed. And I did talk with Wesley today, I mean, he said, well, what if the parks millage doesn't pass? And I said, well, then I said, now you want to come back? and obviously there's a different conversation there, I mean, I think we have plenty of time to get down that path, but I would feel comfortable at a square foot that's much closer to this, and not feel like, even with, and I appreciate, yes, keeping some of these as white box space, and maybe we do one, but realistically, there's a number of unused offices, there's a number of unused workspaces, there's a lot of room in this building, and even the public lobbies, I think are, again, I can appreciate wanting a really beautiful building and making sure it's nice, but I think you could trim up some of these areas and maybe that helps offset and we keep one of the conference rooms. But realistically, there's just a lot of extra in this building.
What, we had talked about, Notre Dame actually came up with the idea, which I thought was interesting, was that the assembly hall was really designed to be potentially a lettable space,
Yep, rental, yep.
rental space. And so that of all the design reconfigurations, preserving the integrity of this space as being, in fact, I was a little surprised you were saying it's only this big, actually. I was hoping that we pushed it out, not a lot, but a couple feet in each direction would be great from a multi-community aspect and available for the community to use. The other thing, the water closets are huge, the bathrooms. Do you have any idea why those are, are they really needed to be that big? I mean, look at how much square.
Yeah, they're considerable.
Handicap.
Yeah, handicap.
You can get those down. I was gonna say, as you most are aware, I recently sold my business. There is a new concept. These people have bought 90 different companies similar to mine. As they build these, they go very limited offices around. They have one beautiful conference room. They go where they'll have a big area similar to this one here that's just got a few things shown. They find that if with the right cubicles, they're putting 50 people in there, and they're all on the phone, they're all doing their jobs, they all got the computers, and nobody bothers each other. And that,
Do they have an escape space too, though? Like, what do you call that? You call that space that
I'm sure they do, and I'm sure they have, they have places for,
Well, mostly because people like to go there and they use their cell phone and talk to somebody. I mean, it's like a truly private place to have a bad phone call.
We just moved our offices at Grand Valley, because we moved out of the Hart Center downtown, because we're renovating the building. We went to a space up at CHS. We now have one main big room with 25 people, individual desks, we have phone booths, we have breakout areas, we have desk spaces, then we have 10 other offices and things. So in fact, and then when we move back, we're going to open office concept with limited number of offices.
So if you need a private space, you just go find an open room and use it.
We have rooms set aside for private spaces that are there and doable, so it's.
this is exactly what the template is.
And we were worried, because everyone's moving from offices to open space, and they're all beautiful cubicles, glass size, same up desk, but when they're there, they're all like, this is great, we loved it. I was really afraid last week when we moved. It was gonna be interesting, it turned out.
Well, I'll say this, as far as open spaces, I mean, it might work in some areas, but in my area, we have the farmer's market manager, and they had an intern, and there was one other person that was working with them for just a little while, coming in and out randomly. It really, really negatively impacted our work. Noise, laughter, chitter chatter, which is fine, on a day-to-day basis. We want everybody to be, happy and friendly.
Those
then
you
when
would
there's-
probably take into a more of a private room if you have people from the outside. But I'm seeing these people in our business, they're on the phones, they're scheduling, they're on
We
computers.
put white noise machines, we have white noise in the ceiling things, and you don't hear.
I'm not,
anything from
all I'm
face-to-face.
saying is, this is what our experience has been, and again, as Julius mentioned earlier, we have people coming to the window asking about various other things, voter registration and during election season and all that. You have to sit down with these people, and it gets really, really loud. So all I'm saying is, from my experience with the things that we have to work through, everybody on top of everybody just doesn't work.
I wasn't saying anybody even on top of each other. When it's done outright, there's a lot more space than you think there, but it's fine.
Well,
That's why you have someone professionally laid out.
Currently, right.
yeah, well,
right.
your current office is like one big cube, and your office, maybe it's 2 cubes. I mean, it's much smaller than, I think.
The biggest point that my point is, I would rather design a building that's usable, expandable, rentable, and kinda, you know, if you think about it, there's so many buildings in Ada that are skinny. I would rather keep it a little fatter like this one and shorten it up a little bit. Maybe getting rid of some of the office, maybe even offsetting some of the things once you're inside to make this room perhaps bigger. Or there's some things that you can do in this. And Joe, yes, I understand that you need a little bit more for your election equipment, what have you. I'm not discounting that. But I'm saying for the people that potentially can, open space is the way to go. Everybody is doing it. And they make it nice, they make it private, they make it everything. And they're in an open space, so if they really need to talk to somebody, they can spin back and ask a question. But again, it's not disruptive conversation, nor is it boisterous laughter or like the beer commercials on TV, you know?
You know, for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years, way back when, the Hayworth dealer here in town was my client. And the thing that impressed me was the science that went into this. And so I think maybe what we ought to do too is maybe get, you know, Herman Miller or Hayworth or somebody to just look at what we're doing and see. There's the sciences that they come up with, how to avoid noise, and even how to run your mechanicals and your electrical.
Yeah, I know Ken, when we toured the HTC building,
That's what I was
yeah,
just.
he talked a lot about that, and so Ken did the design, and so part of that was bringing in, you know, so they worked through what the individual, like, employees had a workstation, but there was a locker that pulled out, and again, there's a lot of different models that you can use, but one of the pieces he does is connect with, you know, they have the dampening effect, they've got the white noise machines, and so that is part of what Ken will do. Again, this is just high-level concept. We're gonna end up getting down that path where we're gonna get more detailed, but I just wanted to bring this for feedback, see if anyone had thoughts. I do appreciate, you know, the conversation about making sure the assembly hall room is bigger, because I do think that's somewhere that we can rent out to the public, and then the doors would actually open up to the grass area next to the building. And so if there's an ability to maybe,
Or a new rose garden.
no, roses are a lot of maintenance, we've cut those out of other projects.
We'll do one like a Donald
Oh,
Trump
boy.
rose garden.
Oh, boy.
You know, the other thing I think about is this, is that you could have, trying to build a building here and try to right-size it to the size you want. You got 2 problems. One is you build it too big and you got excess space. The other one is you build it too small and you don't have enough space. And if you look at which problem is the bigger problem, it's going too small.
Thank you.
You know, but that you can always look to, as you
Unless you
build
can't
this.
afford the building.
That's
Well-
that's the other part, right?
Well, you gotta be able to afford the building, yeah, but again, you know, and I've talked about this, if you're 20 years from now, you gotta expand, you gotta pay to expand it, you'll get sticker shock. You know,
We're gonna have sticker shock this year too.
Included in the 84
yeah, but you'll have bigger stickers.
Oh, I know, we will.
count.
Yeah, I don't think it does.
No, I
1,000
think
square feet or?
No, might be 800 square feet. It might be included in there, I'm not sure.
The
I'd
reason,
have to double check.
it would be nice to double check, because we also then have the garage next door that we're storing stuff in. We do some use of the house next. The point I'm making is that as part of the conversation of what we're trying to do, saying what footprint are we currently in, realistically, would be a more honest conversation than to help us say, well, you know, why did it go from, you said it was 8,500, then it went to 16,000, so why are you now talking 19 or 20 or whatever? Well, I'd feel more comfortable to say, well, really, we're in 11,000 right now. By the time you add all the junk together, it would help us, you know, to.
Tom, are you considering leaving all the stuff that's stored at the house next door, or are you?
No, I'm
factoring
just
in-
trying to use it as a
I wanna
baseline,
get your
starting
input,
point,
right.
so that as we get conversations and criticisms or whatever, remarks about the change, we're saying, well, right at this very moment, we're occupying this space, this amount of space.
Yeah, because we're using the house next door for some of it, not all of it, but, you know, I think much to your point where you talked about measuring how much space are we actually using,
Yeah.
and that's Tom's point of, we saying we're an 8,500 square feet building, we're really not, because we're using the building next door, we're using the water tower, we're using all these other locations, so maybe we're actually closer to 10,000.
See, and
square
that's
feet.
what people don't understand. I mean, I just had a conversation with somebody, I told you, I got a call from a resident, over the weekend. And they were talking about this, like, what do you guys need the Taj Mahal for? And, I was just explaining that our needs are mainly storage, and we've grown. I mean, 20 years ago, the township was one thing, and it's different now. And that we need to have all of our records and equipment and whatever it is, it needs to be all under one roof. So I just wanted to know.
The township clearly has doubled in size since
Right.
since we moved into this facility, in terms of population.
You know, and I think that a lot of the people who are gonna be skeptical about a bigger building, they've never even been in this one. To see what we're.
Well, I was gonna say, how do you have the conversation?
Well, I think we could go on and on and on on this.
So I just wanted to make sure, I guess, if there's any final feedback, I mean, my plan would be to, again, continue to look at this.
Should we be backing into it in reverse from a finance perspective, though?
A little bit.
I mean, we really do, you know, I try to use an analogy of, you know, we've got two trains coming in line side by side, and one train's the design train, the other train's the cost train, and we really need to know the cost train.
Yeah, so my hope today was basically to get, yes, we understand everything's been done, then Kevin and I can work with, you know, the finance people we've been talking to and say, realistically, what can we afford, and have that number, so that we're at least having those conversations together, so that we don't get to the point, and I wanna make sure we don't get Ken that impression that we'll build us a 17,000, 18,000 square foot building and go crazy, or what is our budget and where are we trying to stick? And with the parks coming out, that's a big component of a potential cost center. So Kevin and I will have to sit down and really make sure what that number is for an annual payment for bond, what we're spending cash on hand. Then obviously the conversation between the house next door and then this property comes into play. So there's a lot of variables, but we can get closer.
Well, we kind of had that meeting, frankly, in my mind. I mean, you made a presentation where we saw different scenarios and the cost at 16 all the way up to 23, and I think we all walked away, at least I did, surprisingly, us leaning towards a 23,000 square foot building. You know, we're talking about renting space, you know, making sure it's not too small, but we don't want to outgrow it. I think what I'm hearing, I mean, these floor plans are nice and everything, but the reality is that, to Tom's point, I don't think we can afford a 23,000 square foot building. So, and all I'm hearing now is that let's make the assembly room bigger. I think the real question is that how big do we want it? If we're going to rent it and make it appealing, because then you're gonna have to add, as I mentioned, some sort of minor, small kitchen if you're gonna have some sort of event. It's just, I think for me, I'm still kind of unclear what I'm hearing from my fellow board members in regards to where do we land when Notre Dame makes a presentation, square footage of this building. I think 23,000 is too big. I mean, if I just took 10% and reduced everything by 10% in this building, in this floor plan, I'd be pretty damn happy. So again, there's gonna be some tweaks to the floor plan. I appreciate, Trustee Prost's comments. I mean, I think there's a need for some private offices, and I have no problem with some openness as well. It's a nice mix. I would suggest a lot of people go over to EHTC and look at their building. A bunch of CPAs got that building delivered under budget, and it's a nice mixture of everything that we're talking about here. So, and the last thing, I just want to make sure we're disputing this Taj Mahal, because that's the last thing I want the residents to be focused on it. It takes your breath away at first, but the reality is we need the space. I think we're going to be really cognizant of how we utilize the space, efficient. I want a good workflow as well. You know, we're going up and down the stairs. There's now all of a sudden we have one copy room. Now we're going to need 2 copiers because I'm sure Julius isn't going to want to walk up and down the stairs. There's a lot of elements to this. I think I would just like to know with confidence, like what size feels right. And I don't know if we have to backward engineer this, or we know that 16,000 square feet is basically double our current one with lots of storage space and basically addressing our needs for any sort of future growth. So that's my thought, at least. I think 23,000 is, I think this building, as is going to be presented, is too big. I can live with 20,000 square feet.
I would too.
I think that 20,000 is the sweet spot, number 2, honestly.
Mhm.
19 to 20, in other words, not over 20.
Yeah.
19 to
Right,
20,
right.
But I think as part of the reworking it to add that community value, that as we steal space all over the place, that we definitely don't want to compromise on the assembly hall.
I would agree with that.
It's a monetizable, and it's something that gets
Yep.
the public into the building, other than just for meetings and stuff, too. So-
Yeah, and keep in mind, we are now right across from the library, so we do have that space there for, you know, it'd be nice to have a conference room, but if you need a bigger space, it's right across the street in the
I
library.
do think, listen, I'm not a proponent of having, I am a proponent of having offices, don't get me wrong. I think
Yeah.
there's a combination of the two, but I think the one thing we're missing here, going back from my experience and doing stuff we're doing today as well, is that there's gotta be a collaboration earlier on between an architect and an office design.
Yes.
Like Custer or something to get
Yep.
together, because they're gonna help you figure these things out before the architect is done. And I think the challenge is you have an architect design to their design, and then you try to shoehorn in office space needs, they're gonna understand much better, and that's when we kind of, you know, took our foot off the gas and said, back to Custer, how is this gonna work out? And they blew it out of the water, I think, and then they probably did the same thing over at ETHC, and I think that's the idea, is that we gotta get the teams together who are best at that part of the job to do it, and trust them to come back.
You know what, Dan's right. I just, that reminded me, while working for that dealer, I used to hear all the time, boy, it would have really been helpful if we'd sat down with the architect before they put this together and.
We still have that opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm saying
are you
let's
proposing
just-
that we talk about that and perhaps set a budget or something? I don't know if they charge you for it. I'm sure they probably do, if you're gonna just do the design work, unless you're gonna give them the contract for the.
Yeah, I mean, that,
Who knows,
I
yeah.
thought we agreed on 20,000 square feet from the last meeting that we had. I was surprised
So,
that.
so we had, I mean, the problem was we didn't have any actual, I mean, we just talked about, well, 16, 18, throw them out, 23, 21, let's sit on 20. So I wanted to bring this back before we get to the actual meeting and say, what does it actually look like? What does 20,000 look like? And so I can get there pretty easily in that 19, 20,000 range by removing a lot of extra space. We still keep a lot of extra space for future growth, for conference rooms, for rentable space. But I just wanted to make sure that we had this conversation. One, because we had a regular work session scheduled and I thought it'd be a good topic. But two, because we have Notre Dame coming in, we're gonna have conversations with the public. And I don't want the board to say, well, we picked 20,000 because we threw 16 and 18 out and then 23 and 21. Instead, we sat down and looked at the needs.
And it best suited our needs.
Correct.
Right.
And it's something that's defensible. So,
Okay, are we ready to move on then?
you have to go take your.
Well, I will, but if we're gonna be done in 5 minutes, I can,
Okay, just making
I got about a 5 to 10 minute window. The future.
The dogs are barking.
Well, a dog with seizures, you take it seriously, I'm telling you. Future regular work session topics, I suggest that we have, well, actually, June 29th, Monday, is the Monday of 4th of July week. In other words, that's coming Saturday, it's 4th of July, so keep that in mind. And it's also the 250th 4th of July. So I don't know if that changes everyone's plans and makes it that much bigger. But, Julia, my question is, are people even gonna be around on those dates? First off, is everybody be able to say, gee, Monday, June 29th, I'll be around? The reason I'm asking is because I was gonna propose that we maybe do that, ask the trainer to do that date.
so the trainer, I've got to send out, I thought I had a date that worked, that's not June 29th. I would say that June's a pretty long way away in terms of getting the board training done. I'm looking at my calendar and
All right, so you
I
prefer.
might be here on the 29th, but I might be in Chicago for basketball.
I'm here on Monday.
All right,
I'll
so,
figure it out.
all right, so then that was my only time. So do you have topics?
Well, no, that's, I wanted to ask the board, is there stuff, I mean, I know we touched on Kent County Road Commission, we talked on pedestrian. I'd like to do, probably we'll have a utility rate study discussion, and conversation, because that'll be further ahead along, but if there's other topics, I mean, and you could, I don't need them today, but you can just shoot them to me as a note and say, what could, you know, in the future, we can talk about it and identify what we want to do. And I think this is helpful, you know, when we talk about the BFG building or Parks Millage or any of these things, I think it's helpful.
This was a good meeting. Did you want to, I know Tom's gonna grab the dog.
Yep.
Did you want to talk at all about the other,
We can, if,
All right, let me go do that. I'll be right back.
just real quick to give him a heads up?
Go ahead, keep talking.
well, I just wanted to give a little bit of an update, and I'll keep it general and generic, regarding potential property, you know, that parties may be interested in. We're just going through the conversation of due diligence right now. I did reach out to Kent County. I had a good conversation with Kent County this morning. So one of the questions that had been posed was, what are the needs near and adjacent to the cover to the potential park-to-park bridge? And so work through, and I'll send this out in a separate email. But essentially renderings of the park-to-park bridge, but also Kent County's applying for a grant right now, actually I think tomorrow, for a 60-space parking lot that will be right adjacent to the park-to-park bridge. And so they've indicated they don't see any need for the township to retain parking across the street. They wouldn't necessarily, they think the current lot at the end of Egypt Valley is much more intended to be equestrian. So right now there's, I think, 12 spaces in there that are paved, and then there's spots for 6 trailers and trucks that can offload, you know, horses. But realistically, they felt like that space, the potential 60 spaces they're adding, and then Roselle Park as well, that they didn't feel the need to add other. They did say there's other spots on the property you could add pocket parks, like, you know, they said their goal would never be to make sure that people are parking on Pettus. No one's gonna park on Pettus. So that they indicated that would not be the case. They didn't have any estimates on potential usage, but they said they could ask LRE. And so I'm still working through some of the other pieces, but wanted to give an update on that. Dan, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted me to touch on?
Well, I know they're gonna be reaching out potentially to meet with.
Yeah, and so I've communicated to each of the board members that they had reached out. I know they already had some conversations with some. But essentially, they'd like to have the board try to, you know, move on this at some point. If they don't
Not
get
at some
action.
point, like.
Yeah, next couple, if they don't get
I
action,
met with them on Friday.
April or early May, that realistically the project probably dies.
Correct.
But again,
If anyone wants to come
not trying to get into too
individually
much detail.
understand my conversations,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to. I think it's important that we kind of maintain that we're all in the same place together in this.
Noticed this morning there was 3 cars, maybe they were trucks, parked, 4 of them, parked on our property. Yeah,
Parked on our property where?
on Pettus,
Oh, at the 1100 Pettus?
yeah.
Okay.
So
They
they
weren't
must,
doing anything there, they were out back.
yeah, they must have been out there.
Okay.
Even at night they've been doing it. I don't know if
Oh.
you've noticed, you'll see spotlights and stuff out there.
You don't want to wait because they
Yeah.
got.
Okay. Sorry, we just touched on, I followed up with Kent County Parks regarding the need for parking close to the park-to-park bridge. They're actually submitting a grant for a 60-space parking lot and observation deck and restroom facility next to the park-to-park bridge location on the north side of the river. And so they didn't feel the township needed to save any parking at any property adjacent there.
But we're gonna need our own parking,
Well, I mean, we would need our own parking for our own maintenance facility, or, you know, but not for the public.
Did they say where the proximity was to that property?
The park, where their proposed parking area would be? I would anticipate it be between where Edie Pettis's garage is right now and the consumer substation in that area, which is right where the bridge is gonna be.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, it's within, I think, 800 feet. They wanted to make sure that any parking facilities was within 1,000 feet of the bridge.
Not a mile.
For parking
I'm
facilities,
saying
no.
Not a
Yeah.
mile away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only two-tenths of a mile.
Yeah. So.
All right, we're ready to move on to then, board member comment? Anybody got anything else I want to talk about?
This was good. I'm glad we had this meeting.
I got one quick one, and that's, I think we really should look to get somebody in, like a Custer or somebody in working sooner than later,
Mhm.
because they are the space expert.
Yeah, I know Ken, he had some ideas and concepts on even bringing in a builder, much earlier than designing it all and bidding it out. And so I think that's something we'll have him at the next.
That could be a work session.
Well, I mean, it would be a work session, but also I think he could provide some clarification on that when he's gonna submit a proposal, and in there he'll outline, what his work would be, what the timeline would be, all that. And Chip had come in the other day and kind of said, hey, we're trying to plan our work for the next year, is this happening? Because we don't want to lose it, but we also don't want to just sit on the sideline. I said, nope. I said, we're getting closer. Notre Dame, once they finish their final report, we can take that next step after that.
Well, he's also gonna have some input as well. I mean, he's gonna know
Sure.
our space needs, project out, and then
Only comment. That's it.
Okay. Opportunity for additional public comment. Anybody want to make any public comment? Closing the public comment and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
support.
Moved by Dan, supported by Dan. Kevin.
Give someone else the chance to adjourn. It's like, that's usually my.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned at 5:53 PM.
You go feel better.
Yeah, I know, he's, I felt